Okay, Dennis,
Yeah, Joe.
tell the people what happened today.
Well, Lucid Motors made a lot of Tesla fanboys pretty upset. Can I say that?
I,
Would you say they're upset
I
a
mean,
little bit?
we're recording this the day before, so are you saying that you think that the Tesla fans are going to be upset?
I feel like they might be a little bit upset. Because Lucid really threw down the gauntlet and is really providing the, I guess, first concrete competitor to the Model S.
Maybe you should announce what they announced
Well, what they
for the
said
people.
was, right, you were there, I was there a couple weeks ago. They gave their range, right? They said we're going to have 517 miles EPA. None of that WLTP, none of that none of that other. We got EPA numbers right here.
And everyone
517
was
miles.
like, that's cool,
Right.
but, but,
But, that's cool,
but,
Lucid, but if it's like a 150 kilowatt hour battery pack, that's not as cool, right?
like
So,
people were saying like 200.
right. 200, 150, like, yeah, that's cool. You just doubled up the batteries, but the efficiency is still more or less meh or in line with what everyone else does. So, Lucid announced this week the size of their battery pack. And, me and Gio took a bet, and we had faith, right? That it wasn't going to be 150. I said 130. My boy Gio said 125. Uh, but even then, in those optimistical projections, we were still far off of what Lucid announced, which was a 113 kilowatt hour battery, which is only 13 more kilowatt hours than what Tesla does in their Model S, which has 402 miles, while Lucid is promising a range of 517 miles. And as far as we know right now, their top end ranged model will also be the model that will be able to do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, as far as we know at this point. I guess that will be more confirmed during the release, the reveal on September 9th. So, yeah, we got some very interesting competitive tech coming from Lucid, and one might say it's too good to be true. I'm sure there were people that would be skeptical of this claim because it's you know 500 plus miles, but only 13 more kilowatt hours in the battery pack. Everyone considers Tesla to have the best motors, batteries, rightfully so. So to just kind of try and comprehend that a completely new automaker could come out and I'm not going to say demolish the figures, but you know, be considerably more than what Tesla has to offer. Some people might be a bit skeptical. How are you processing this information, Gio?
I mean, they didn't have to release 516 miles of range. The car was originally stated with, what was it, around 400?
Well, they said 400 plus, but we
They
imagined.
didn't have to put a 113 kilowatt hour battery. They could have done with 100 and reached that 400. So they clearly did this to be number one,
Of course.
and it worked, and it's surprising because what is that, a 13% larger battery while having 25% more range?
Yep.
Some math like that.
Something back of the napkin math.
They they're not close to Tesla. They've caught up basically. This was
One.
like the only one of the only things Tesla does a few things, but it's one of the
Right.
only things that Tesla had was their lead in battery technology.
Mm-hmm.
While everyone else is releasing these cars that have the same size battery as the Model 3 and Y, but they get a fraction of the range because of their efficiency.
Right. Um. Obviously, now the most important question on everyone's mind will be how much does it cost? Uh.
Which we still don't know.
Right. We still don't know. Hopefully, we'll be able to find that out in a week or two, September
What do you
9th.
think the price is going to be?
Well, they, they've kept the battery pack. I mean, it's the biggest available as far as currently available electric cars are. So I'm not going to call it small, but much smaller than what I expected. But I don't know if these are some sort of super special high density batteries that no one else has. I mean, as far as I know, they work with LG to create their batteries, as far as I remember. So it's not like their own 100% in-house type of thing. So I would have to imagine that a lot of the efficiency comes also from the motors and aerodynamics, I guess, because they said that their aero is the best in class. So I want to say that their like dollar per kilowatt hour isn't ridiculous, and the batteries aren't like some sort of space age tech. So initially, I mean, we were throwing out ridiculous numbers, right? Because 500 miles of range, we were like, this car could be like $200,000, and it's would still kind of be justifiable because it is a
And it
luxury
would
car
compete.
after all.
You have
Um,
the Porsche Taycan, it would
yeah,
outdo the Porsche Taycan in performance
exactly.
and in range.
Right, and Porsche Taycan already exists, and that starts at the top end. One starts at 185, 175. So a $200,000 price range would have been justifiable for the Air. But now seeing this relatively small battery, and I am 100%, almost 100% confident that they want to compete as much as they can against the Model Y. I'm
You mean you think it's
say,
competing against a Model Y?
I mean,
You think
sorry,
that's
sorry,
their
Model S,
competitor?
Model S, Model S, misspoke. Um, Model Y is down. Model Y competitors downrange, I guess. So for Model S, I don't know. I would imagine no more than 150, perhaps $130,000 for their top one. I don't know if
So,
there's going to be
so
any
do
sort
you
of
think
options.
they're still going to compete with Tesla, or are they going to go towards the Taycan part of the market? Because this press release does seem very. They do mention Tesla a few times without naming them. It does
Right,
seem like that's the class that they've stated they want to be in.
right. They talk about the frunk size and how much more interior size space they have. Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna give you the cop out answer and say they're gonna compete with both, obviously. Uh, as we both know, the Model S design wise has been getting kind of stale, right? It's been more or less the same design for the past 7, 8 years, minus the front end redesign. And we know there's a decent amount of people that might want to go with the Model S, but they've been seeing the same Model S for the past almost decade. Um, and the range and performance upgrade is so much that it seems justifiable to think about going with a Lucid if it's 130 compared to the 100 that a performance would be. Obviously, if a person just has $100,000 or is not willing to spend more than $100,000, you know, Lucid could have 600 miles of range, and I don't think they're going to win those people over.
Well, remember originally the Lucid was set to start at what 60s or 70s.
Yeah, but
We're looking at the top of the line.
correct.
There's still going to be a much more affordable
Right.
Lucid.
So that's where I was getting with this. Um, given that 113 kilowatt hour battery has given us 517 miles of range, uh, quote unquote allegedly, because the car's not out yet, but that is what they're saying. It 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 makes me more excited for the possibility of whatever their lower end. I don't know if they're going to have just a low end and high end, or they're going to have a low, middle, high. I don't know what tier setup they're going to have, but it gets me pretty excited for their lowest configuration, which can have like a 70 kilowatt hour battery and still have a range that's like high 200s, low 300s, something like that. And then price that at like 70, 80,000, 60,000 if they can get it down to that low. I don't know about that price range anymore, but like a 70, $80,000 Lucid Air with 300 plus miles of range, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal. Um, Especially if we look at those people that 400 miles is more or less too much range, or they don't really need it and they want something a bit more fresh. Well, you have the Air coming in with hypothetically 300 miles, more or less the same price, maybe even cheaper. I don't know what they're gonna do, and it's a car they haven't been seeing for the past 7 years. Obviously,
Regardless of price,
yeah.
this is a pretty good achievement and pretty impressive.
I know. I've recently learned that Lucid's parent company designs the battery packs that they use in Formula E, which is the electric uh, sister of F1. So obviously, to get high performance batteries in a race setting, you have to know what you're doing so that the cars can proceed throughout the entire race and have good speeds and whatnot. So I imagine that a lot of their improvements and whatever they're doing to their battery packs or electric motors comes from trying to make them work in literal race cars. That was very interesting to learn.
Density is pretty important in race cars because you're lowering the amount of weight while maintaining range. Just
Oh
packing
yeah,
more batteries in.
yeah, yeah. It's very exciting, and I mean, if you're even half a fan of electric cars, seeing this type of technological feat should, I don't know, should at least somewhat excite you. Of course, I will say the disclaimer that the car isn't out. No one we know has driven the car. It has not been on the road. So these ranges aren't really finalized, but I would hope they wouldn't be lying to us about something so bold.
The the production version gets unveiled next month and it goes into production early next year. So it's
Yeah.
not it's not a concept. It's not far out. I do believe this is everything that they are releasing.
Yeah, they've showed the multiple prototypes already do like multiple like road trips. I remember they had a video showing LA to San Francisco, so it was a 800-mile total trip. Obviously not on a single charge, but still. Do you think? How long do you think before Tesla, I don't know, quote unquote, retaliates? When what time span do you see? Because Battery Day is coming up. Obviously, that's it's going to be what a
Battery
lot of
Day
people
is
point
coming
to.
up and they're set to release the Plaid. So
Hmm.
the question is, does this premium Lucid Air that does 516 miles of range, 0 to 16 2.6 seconds, does that compete with the current performance Model S or is that going to compete with the Plaid in terms of price? The Plaid will, hoping will outperform a 0 to 60 of 2.6 seconds since the Model S currently does 2.4. But where do you think the Lucid's going to be priced at? Closer to Plaid or closer to performance?
Well, closer to Plaid, but it might end up being still more expensive than the Plaid. Uh, but I've always been in the camp that says that the Plaid is gonna sacrifice range in order to get its higher performance.
Or will they just fit a bigger battery pack like Lucid did?
Yeah, but
I
when you
mean,
do
Lucid has
I mean,
516 miles and still maintaining a 0 to 60 at 2.6 seconds, as far as we understood it. The Model S, to achieve 2.4 seconds 0 to 60, only has 348 miles.
yeah. Well, I mean, the Plaid's gonna have a bigger battery first of all, right? But I I don't know how much Tesla wants to push the 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 performance of it
Do you
because
think it's going to have a larger battery, or do you think on Battery Day we're going to hear about a whole new set of achievements in density on Tesla's side?
well, that is that is some
Because
information that would make you.
Lucid could have very easily just stacked two batteries on top of each other and called it a day. And with these margins, assuming the car is going to be priced at like 150, they would have still made money on every car. Instead, they put the energy and effort into compacting this and actually being able to compete and one day being able to make a 75 kilowatt hour battery for an affordable car. I mean, just go ahead and read the quote that the CEO stated regarding the.
So the CEO of Lucid, Peter Rawlinson, who, fun fact, was the chief engineer for the Model S when it was built. So this man at least knows what he's doing. Stated in the press release that, quote, it's relatively easy to achieve more range by adding progressively more batteries, but gaining, quote, dumb range that way increases weight and cost and reduces the interior space. Lucid Air has achieved its remarkable range whilst also reducing battery size through its in-house technology, resulting in a breakthrough in overall vehicle level efficiency. By pursuing this smart range approach, Lucid shall not only be able to offer the Air with this unprecedented absolute range, but also offer future models that achieve competitive range from proportionally smaller battery packs, thereby saving cost, weight, and space. Lucid's breakthrough is not merely just a few percent. We are talking about a significant improvement, which I shall cover further on September 9th. This represents a true breakthrough and what excites me the most for the future and for Lucid's role in advancing electrification and sustainable mobility. So, obviously making the battery pack as small as possible.
As of right now, as far as I'm concerned, Lucid's caught up. Lucid's caught up with Tesla. But we don't know what they're going to unveil on battery day. For all we know, Elon's going to come out with a 1,000-mile range battery, 100 kilowatt hour.
Right. As far as we know, the information in its current state, currently as we know, Lucid has more range, is supposed to have more range than the current right now available Model S with a better battery efficiency. But this is all subject to change if Elon comes out on battery day and tells me that they created a 2,000-mile battery from 1 kilowatt hours, and we're all going to have phones that never die and airplanes that run on double A's. Obviously.
It's starting to get a little worrisome. Like, Lucid's not the only company that's getting close to Tesla or have caught up. The Ford Mustang Mach-E is also, it's not close. It's not there, but it's close. It's getting there. Tesla is kind of losing that wide gap. So I really hope on battery day they do,
I don't know about the Mustang being, it's the closest of like the legacy automakers, but it's still only 300 miles from a basically 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, so they still have a while to go.
10% is used for degradation, so it's an 80-something kilowatt hour battery. But yeah, it is like 25% less efficient, but it is the closest out of everyone else.
Right, but
aside from now, Lucid.
Yeah, and I mean Rivian's supposed to also have 400 miles.
Well, the Rivian was on 180 kilowatt hour battery.
That's true. Yeah, Rivian went with the quote unquote dumb range policy and just stacked two. I mean, it's a truck. It's a pickup truck, so the extra weight doesn't really matter too much for it. But when you're trying to build a sedan, I think it matters a little bit more.
As of right now, based on your expectations of battery day, where do you think Tesla's lead in this segment is? Do you think it still lies in battery technology, or is it the full self-driving? Is it the over-the-air software? Even though all these cars are going to have over-the-air software, where's Tesla's advantage here? Why is Lucid Motors not worth $380 billion?
Well, they're not worth $380 billion because they're a private company, first off. I mean, to be that guy. But secondly, the full self-driving of Tesla is probably still the most exciting thing for people. As we've talked about ad nauseum already about range. Range is already in more or less a good spot, especially with electric infrastructure being built out. So, maybe 400. A self-driving car is going to be more impressive for people than even 1,000-mile range, I think, personally. So, in that regard, Tesla still has a lot of hype in regards to that feature set. However, Lucid has also said that the Air is coming with autonomous features of itself, and it's going to be the first production car with LiDAR in it. So we might see our first battle between Tesla's camera setup versus having LiDAR, which we've seen throughout the years. Many people have been making the case for having that Tesla made the wrong decision by going with cameras instead of LiDAR.
Just a quick note. Yeah. This is not one of these cars that are years out. This is set to hit the roads early next year.
Right.
That should be a very strong note.
Right. I will also preface by saying that this car is not out, and I only know what I've read and what I've been told. So I'm not going to say right now that Lucid's autonomous feature set is comparable to Tesla's feature set. I mean, they seem to have pretty good goals with it, and it seems to be equipped with an adequate amount of sensors with it, so it should be competitive. But like I've said multiple times, I don't know until it's actually coming out. So for the time being, I feel like the Tesla's autonomous features are what keeps it afloat of everyone else. Obviously, the range is much more than basically every other car, so that definitely helps. But now Lucid is competing in that regard. So if Lucid can have, if Lucid can even have anything comparable to just autopilot by itself, which as we know is, I don't know, maybe like 90% of the reason to go to full self-driving until it's actually done. It's the only feature that's not really super gimmicky. It's going to be maybe even a tough sell to go with the Model S, in my opinion.
So right now, assuming again we don't know the price of the Lucid Air,
Mm-hmm.
not until around September 9th,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that it matches the price of the Model S, which are you buying today?
It matches the price?
If it matches the price,
I'm going with Air, buddy.
you're going with an Air?
I'm going with an Air.
Now, what do you think Tesla's play is here? Assuming we don't know the price, assuming that they're going to compete with the performance Model S.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla still has their Plaid.
Yeah.
Can Tesla still price their Plaid closer to the Taycan than the performance, or now does the Plaid have to replace the performance in order to compete with Lucid? Because remember, the Model S is not the Model 3 and Y. There's not 500,000 people buying these cars a year. This is a very small segment. What did they do last year? Like 7,000 Model S's?
No, it was like.
Well, it was a little bit.
Last quarter, it was like 7,000. It's
Was
like
it?
it's like 20% of their overall production at this point.
Regardless, it's a small segment. It is very competitive. The Lucid could hurt the Model S very easily, unless Tesla battery day unveils a new battery,
Mm-hmm.
or B drops the price of the Plaid to compete with the performance.
Mm-hmm. The problem with the Plaid is, in terms of this comparison, is that the performance already it has some pretty bonkers, or dare I say ludicrous amount of performance, that it's pretty hard for Tesla to increase the performance even more, because the performance is 2.3 seconds 0 to 60. I think, like, physically, based on the tires you can get in a regular car, you can't go past like 1.8 seconds or something like that. Like, physics, friction doesn't hold up. It's hard. But then you have to ask, okay, so they push the 0 to 60 to 2 seconds or 1.9 seconds. Do you think most people will feel the difference between the 1.9 seconds, 2 seconds in a Plaid versus the 2.3 seconds in a performance, and have to deal with the possibility that the range is going to be even less because they're sacrificing range for powertrain? Hypothetically, I don't know what the range is going to be. And then they just look at the Air, which might be comparatively priced, with 2.5 seconds 0 to 60 and 500 plus miles of range. I don't know, unless you're an absolute speed demon, or Tesla breaks the laws of physics and the Plaid can go 0 to 60 in like 1.5 seconds. I don't know how many people will be choosing the Plaid over the Air, or unless they're just a big Tesla fan. I mean, obviously that's true, or they really want FSD. But strictly performance-wise, I don't know how many people would make that choice.
Well, remember, Lucid's also supposed to have their self-driving suite.
Yeah, but I'm tentative on that. I haven't. We don't know about that.
Now, the bigger news, the more important news, the news that I question why it was even brought up, is the Lucid's frunk size. The largest frunk on the market, people. How do you feel about that?
That's what's selling it. That was a very weird thing to add on. I know they were trying to tell me that the smaller battery means more interior space when they sent it out, but it feels like the achievements are on different ends of the spectrum in terms of like how much range we got out of a battery this relatively small versus how much space you get in the frunk. I mean, for the people that use their frunk, I have the car for you. Class leading. has more than the electric SUV segment too, apparently. So you
Apparently, I did the math. I don't really know if their math works out. I
uh,
trust that they have an actual Tesla to run the dimensions. Running dimensions of the front trunk
right,
on Tesla is not very easy to find.
right. So yeah, if you're into frunks, if frunk size is your number one decision making process for buying an electric car, this is it. This right here. Look no further. Lucid Air can fit a whole other EV in its trunk. Apparently, it's quite massive. They love to tell me. Almost more of the press release was dedicated to the size of the trunk than the actual battery. So, yeah. So, just as a disclaimer, this was all pre-recorded before the embargo lifts for this news to come out. So, if Lucid, you know, hits a sucker punch someday during the actual reveal that was not covered in this podcast, it's not because we don't listen. It's because it was recorded the day before. So let us know what you think down in the comments below, and hope you have a wonderful day.